This is from Psalms 106. There's a couple of verses here. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Excuse me. Yea, they sanctified their sons and their daughters unto devils. Excuse me.
Who's doing this? Who's doing this?
The good guys.
The Jews?
Mm-hmm.
So good at the time.
They did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sanctified their sons and their daughters unto devils. That sounds pretty rough, doesn't it?
Almost sounds like modern day Christianity.
Well, it does. Whenever if we are servants to idols of some sort, whatever that idol might be, that idol, if it's not God, and God is not our idol. So, if we are worshiping something other than God...
And if we aren't worshiping God, then we are worshiping something else.
False religion, worshiping idols, and we've been talking about this lately, that is a demonic world, the world in which we live can be a demonic world. The places that we go to work, the education systems, and this verse here, they sanctified their sons and daughters. What do we do with our kids every day? Not you and I with our two, but what do people do with their children, their school-aged children, every day? They send them off to these places to be indoctrinated with false, with things contrary to the Word of God.
And then wring their hands that they're not serving the Lord, or that they don't get church, or...
And it's just a downhill spiral right from the get-go, and so many people wonder why we are in the state that we are in, and and the church, definitely, they send their children to these institutions to be, the light of the world when you're surrounded by darkness. Can that light outshine the darkness? It can, but when you are so overwhelmed with pollutants, the filters in our Berkey, they filter out pollutants, but after a while they get clogged up. You need to replace them because they get used up. If we're not careful, we will be just like that. We'll get all clogged up with pollutants. And if we have no, real reinforcement, if we maybe go to church once in a while, that's not going to do it.
Right.
And allowing a child to, well, even an adult for that matter, but allowing a child to try to keep themselves purified or whatever, we're just setting ourselves up for failure right from the get-go. I'm so thankful that your mama and I, started homeschooling so many years ago.
Well, I think one of the things that happens with parents, and they don't even realize it, they can be walking the line, going to church, reading their Bible, having their Bible studies, but they themselves are desensitized. They bring things into their home via radio, via TV, via computer. They go to work. They hear, they may not join in the off-color jokes, or they may not join in the music of the worldly music, but it's almost like every place, workplace, office, or factory has music going around the clock. Mm-hmm. So that stuff is getting embedded in your brain. The people at work, seldom are they Christians. Great if they are, but more than not, in your experience, when you've worked outside the home, they haven't been Christians. Mm-hmm. Or they're as benign, they're as ineffective in their Christianity as the other person. Yeah. So being desensitized themselves, it doesn't occur to them when they put their child out in the world, in a worldly mentality, that it's going to affect their child probably in the negative way. And we've seen all the documentaries and heard all of the studies on our children and how quickly we lose them when they're put into the public educational system, because it is not godly.
It is
and it's
not.
Like, the word says, what fellowship does light have with darkness? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have fellowship. That's unequally yoked. It is unequally, and there's circumstances where your kids have to go to public schools. I mean, sometimes there just is, but now more than ever, even single parents with a desire can homeschool their child and still work. I mean, you have to be more creative, absolutely, but it's not impossible. But the thing, too often the thing is the parent is unwilling, because it does take so much extra. I mean, it does. It's a sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice for the parent to do that. Mm-hmm. And coupled with the responsibilities of life and cares of this world that aren't given in the right direction to God to begin with, it just seems overwhelming.
Yep.
So it's
they
just
pile up.
Easier to put the kid in school, let them get their education there, and just pray every day that God protects them and go about your merry business.
We've heard on Odyssey, there are good Christians on Odyssey. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But why do they send their children to public school? You want to live your best for the Lord. If you're talking to a Christian and they want to live their best for the Lord,
Sure.
Even the best of Christians have put their children in public school and expect that their faith will get them through the evolution and the non-truth. And
right. Yep. That's hard.
It might, but we need to try and guard them from it.
Atheist stuff.
Mm-hmm. Atheist stuff. Right.
Evolution.
Yes.
What were you going to say?
What has been a dominating message from the pulpit for a long time? Non-resistance?
No, I don't think so.
Or at least an underlying, in some form or way.
I guess I'm not on that one. What's your point? Let's say we agree with you that it's been non-resistance from behind the pulpit.
Well, in some form or way, like we read last night, non-resistance is a quote-unquote Christian doctrine. In some form or way, physical, whatever.
Well, you know what? You may be right with those in line with more of the Amish or the Mennonite or some form of Anabaptist with the non-resistance, but typically we find that Christian, we're talking non-resistance, we're talking as far as a fighting realm, and we find Christians that are willing, most Christians are willing to be patriotic and defend their country. So I would say that if we're talking about a non-resistance doctrine within this, I'm going to use the term secular Christian culture, from behind the pulpit. It is about non-resistance to sin of the world. Accepting everything the world does because we're supposed to be all love. And then, just bring them in and it's okay. Our people aren't really rooted enough, so we'll win them before we lose our people. And that doesn't happen. We lose our people before we actually win the sinner over because we're just a sloppy agape.
So it may be a non-resistance, and we're not taught resistance.
Yeah, we're not taught resistance.
It turns around to non-resistance. Because they go hand in hand. If you're not taught
Well,
one,
I
you're
don't know
being
how
taught
to deal
the
with
other.
this, so I'm going to ignore it.
Yeah.
Or you know what? The preacher himself up there, looking like the world, trying to justify it from behind the pulpit, teaches the non-resistance of a worldly mentality. The Bible is very clear. Come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord. And if we're putting ourselves in their world, instead of training our children and our family to step out and be different, to bring them to God instead of us submitting our will to them, we're not different.
And even when they were separated, what did so many of the, we'll just say, King Solomon's and people like that do? They brought all these different nations, idolaters into them, and
They intermingled.
you implode
Daddy, when am I gonna read?
in just a minute. But yeah, just the they did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them. I know it's a different dispensation and stuff and blah 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 blah, but if they did not take care of the problem, and they basically went in and mingled with the problem, and now they're doing the problem. That's why are we having such a problem, Lord? Then they start crying for help, which we do. That's we do. But I just found that interesting this morning in some of my reading. And that's they sanctified their sons and daughters unto devils. They just
Can you read verse 36 and 37 again? Geneva.
And they 36, and they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sanctified their sons and their daughters unto devils.
The Geneva just changed has a couple of different words. Verse 36 says, and they served their idols, which were their ruin.
Yeah.
Yea, they offered their sons and daughters unto devils.
Yep.
What does Teen James say?
They served and sacrificed.
So they sacrificed their sons and daughters?
Did I say sanctified the first time? And they
Well, but it still fits.
and they sacrificed. I'm sorry. And they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils. So basically, handed them over to their own demise. And how often do we do that and we don't even realize it? Hand over our children and don't even realize it. How often do we do something and didn't even think about that? Oh, yeah, plain as the nose on our face. Didn't even realize it. So if we're not, consciously aware and thinking about that stuff, then it's going to be our ruin.
Mm-hmm.